Hello, namaste, and a very good evening to all the viewers of Bharat TV, Bharat FM. Viewers, in today's modern Bharat, we need to examine a question that is at the heart of modern India. Is spiritual freedom in a rising superpower under pressure? As India projects confidence on the global stage, there are debates around faith, belief, and personal conscience, and such debates are becoming sharper at home. So, across traditions and communities, spiritual expression has long been woven into India's identity. Today, changing laws, social expectations, and political narratives are reshaping how that freedom is experienced. So, dear viewers, welcome to the 13th episode of Bharat Awakens. In this episode, we will explore whether India's spiritual pluralism is being strengthened, challenged, or redefined in its journey toward superpower status. Today, once again, we welcome our special guests. We have Professor Narayanan Komerath, Sri Shashank Davanagere, the IT professional who has been in USA for quite some time. We have Dr. Nivedita Haran, who's a retired IAS officer, and Professor Narayanan Komerath, as we all know, he was the professor at in Atlanta. Right now, he's settled in India. And we have a very special guest, Sri Ganesh from Tamil Nadu. And thank you so much to all of you for joining. And Ganeshji, I would request you to please introduce yourself briefly to our audience who are all over the world and also in Bharat. And we'll come back to discuss your work.
Namaste, everyone. I'm Ganesh Virupakshan. I'm an IT engineer consulting for Department of Veterans Affairs in Florida. I've been in US for about 28 years, and I have two beautiful daughters. One is studying neuroscience in the local university here, Nova Southeastern, and the younger one is a 12th grader. I do a lot of work for Hindu causes in US as well as in India. I started getting involved after seeing the plight of Indian temples, especially in Tamil Nadu, like the gross negligence by the government and the corrupt temple administrators. We'll look at more of what we do um, as the program goes. Thanks, Ms. Anjali.
Thank you, Ganeshji. And actually, really thanks to you from the bottom of our hearts because we know there is a lot that you are doing for our temples, and we do feel a sense of hope only because of people like you. So, thank you for joining our program, first of all. And my first question is going to go to Shashank. Shashank, is our Bharatiya culture and identity under threat? You know, Prime Minister Modi recently conducted a major celebration at the Somnath Shrine. And clearly, he was pointing to history and the need to be aware of threats and to ward them off. But why now?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you all. And so, Anjali, to answer your question, yes, our culture and identity has always been under threat for at least 1,000 years now. Right? If you look at the ancient world, or maybe 2,000 years ago, you had the Egyptians were worshipping Ra, Amun, Isa, and then Romans were worshipping Jupiter, Juno, Minerva, and then Mesopotamians closer to our home were worshipping Anu, Istar, and even the Chinese were worshipping their own pantheon of gods. And I don't know if you guys read the book, but Catherine Nixie had written a book called The Dark Ages, where she talks about the collapse of Roman civilization, and their ancient gods were wiped out in 100 years, starting at 400 CE, current era. Egypt fell to the other cult in less than 100 years, and then Mesopotamia and Iran, Persia, and all the way was everything was wiped out. All the ancient civilization or the ancient roots were wiped out within 80 years. Chinese survived their this onslaught, but they lost everything under Mao and the communists. So the point I'm trying to make is that we, the Sanatan Dharmics, are the last standing civilization where our ancestors going back 2000, 4000, 8000 years worship the same gods that we are worshipping too. That is saying something. Modi ji in his speech, as you mentioned at the Somnath Parv, and Doval ji in his speech to the Viksit Bharat Young Leaders Forum in Delhi, maybe 1 or 2 weeks prior to what Modi ji's speech, they are all pointing to the same legacy. They are reminding us, they are warning us that the freedom that we have is never free. And if we don't learn from our history, we will become history. And to the question of why now, I think uh, I think we are soon going to be at a juncture in our history where our kids or their kids, somewhere down the line, closer, will have to fight again to protect our way of life. Modi ji, Dole sir, or Mohanji Bhagwat, and all the intellectuals. Here we have Ganesh ji, who's working on ground, Nivedita ji, and Professor. All of them are working on ground to lay a foundation so that our future generations will have a chance to win. I think, and this time it will be decisive. I think that is what I personally think that is what Modi ji said. Modi ji meant when he says for the next 1,000 years we are setting up things.
We are setting up things for the next 1,000 years.
Thousand
Very right.
years. Yep.
1,000 years. Like to hear from Nivedita. What are your thoughts on what Shashank just mentioned?
Thanks, Anjali. Thank you so much. This is a very, very interesting topic that you have selected for today's discussion. And just to set the tone, India had been under foreign rule for hundreds of years, and that had its major impact. It suppressed, belittled the Indian way of life, our culture, our mores, even our past history was forgotten. The languages, of course, underwent so much changes. So, as is wont to happen, they developed an inferiority complex regarding what I would say is Bharatiyata. What were we that we have forgotten over the last hundreds of years that we were occupied? Now, it is natural on the part of the invaders or colonizers to look down upon the occupied culture. But what hurt more was that the locals themselves opted out of it. They moved away from it, from this Bharatiyata. And they chose to adopt the foreign culture more and more. Of course, there was a lot of conversions, but more important, the way of life. Our history became sort of the Mughal history was the beginning, and colonial history, as if there was no Indian history prior to 1400. And I can say I have not studied much in school about the pre 1400 history. Why is it so? And same thing continues. Unfortunately, this was not corrected post independence, which should have been corrected and which happens in many countries that gain independence. Our youngsters, even today, need to speak better English. They think that coming up in life means speaking better English. It is not so. They need to wear Western clothes, even in sweltering heat. They hanker for pizza and sandwiches, and that has become the way of life. Uh, and they feel that that is the way to be counted in. So, this is the mindset that has got embedded in us for generations. And this is the mindset that I think we should now get rid of. We should get out of. It is not an easy proposition, but that is what we need to do.
So they have prepared a generation of brown sahibs who are ashamed of their own roots. That's what it looks
Absolutely.
like. I would like to hear you, Ganeshi. What are your thoughts on all these ideas that Nivedita and Shashank just talked about?
I
Can
couldn't
you give?
agree with them more in terms of what Nivedita ji talked about in terms of conversion or the history and other things. Like, as she said, like, we haven't heard anything about any of our past rulers who really fought for our Sanatana Dharma to be at this stage, right? Say, for example, like the Mughals, they have gaps of hundreds of years in between the invasions. We read about only their victories. We never read about anything that was repulsed, right? For from say 1000 to 1300, we somehow defended our country, right? And that history is masked. And beyond that, now we have an onslaught of conversions, right? Forced conversions. That was in the early parts when people are converted. Either you convert or you pay extra tax, or you'll be killed, etc. Right? And also we have incentivized conversions now, where they give you a bag of rice to convert. So those are the kind of things which we need to fight against. Should we have done this earlier? Yes, of course, we should have started that much earlier, but better late than never. At least we should start now and start preventing people from doing forceful conversions. So, like, also, we need to educate our kids about our past glory. Like, I draw inspiration from people like Jay Sai Deepak or Vikram Sampath, Sanjeev Sanyal, Anand Ranganathan, etc., where they try to bring out what was our history. You would have heard about the latest one. Sanjeev Sanyal had initiated the stitched ship. They sailed from Gujarat to Oman using a 5th century technique of building ships without any modern equipment, except for a few of those which are required for today's sea traffic. Other than that, they sailed the entire distance without any mechanical help.
That's
So,
amazing. Wow.
so those are the kind of things which would be an inspiration for our youngsters. And I agree with Modi ji on his speech in Somnath. Yes, we need to carry forward our way of life. It doesn't mean that we have to just follow whatever our ancestors were doing due to limitations, but we should not be giving up our traditions and culture.
Yep, very true. We should not be giving up on our traditions and cultures. And I am going to actually move on to Narayanji because I also remember somewhere reading about his Somnath syndrome. Narayanji, what do you have to say about all the thoughts that have been
Uh,
expressed so far?
Namaste, Anjali. Thanks for mentioning that. Shashank, Nivedita, and Ganesh have put it very accurately. See, seeing the horrors around the world, and we can see it on TV and on Twitter every day, we know all too well that a united, strong Bharatam, I'm from Kerala, so it is Bharatam, not anything else, is our only refuge. If you want to make it a refuge, it really should be not a fortress. I don't want to call it a fortress, a safe home. We must win, not just survive. And that is a key difference, win. So a few years ago, yes, I did write about what I called the Somanath syndrome. I went and did research on how many times we had been invaded. I'm sure the Prime Minister did not need my advice on Somanath. He is from Gujarat after all. Today, Indians brag about the $4 trillion economy, third in the largest, going to become number one and number zero in no time. Largest private stores of physical gold. Hear that. And maybe silver. A 700 million strong and young and hungry demographic dividend to do your manufacturing for you. Huge reserves, these are, maybe mythical, maybe real, of oil, gas, lithium, you name it, we have it. For the first time since Somanath's glory days and since the looting started, India is perceived to be rich. And to me, that is not good news. That means that the Rakshasas are plotting to attack again, to destroy Bharat again. And if you need any evidence of that, read the news. The worst weakness is internal. It is ignorance, greed, most of all, complacency. Spiritual identity is the strength that has saved Bharatam from the fate of most nations with any wealth around the world. Shashank mentioned those nations that were totally destroyed. They were all world leaders in wealth and education and culture. Look what happened to them. Bharatiya culture is now being realized as the sensible path by good people around the world. So it is targeted.
I remember since my childhood, there's this once, I'm from Delhi, so we have been I've been hearing about our Sanskriti, our Sabhyata, our civilization staying while the others have been destroyed. And I've heard my parents and uncles and aunts say this one sentence in Hindi that koi to baat hai ki hasti mitti nahi hamari. There is definitely something there that are we are still existing. So Nivedita, my question is to you, but yes, it's true that there is something about our spirituality, but what are the threats that you perceive other than the obvious ones from declared enemies building military forces to attack India?
Yeah, no, Anjali, it's not just simply the enemies waiting across the border. And I'm so happy that Professor Narayanan gave me this opening. And without sounding an alarmist, I wish to mention some facts. As you know, I travel quite a bit, and I have been in Manipur over the last 2 years, almost 6 times, 5 or 6 times. In Manipur, and this is a small fact I want to bring to your notice, over the last 2 years, arms have been seized that are made in China, our neighbors on the north beyond Tibet. It's actually stamped on those guns and rifles and whatever those are. And a lot of the arms and the immense amount of drugs that is being pumped in clandestinely through our border with Myanmar is from that country. Uh, the border with Bangladesh is equally worrisome. We all know what's happening over the last 3, 4 months. Arms, drugs are being smuggled in large quantities. Our open border with Nepal, at one point of time, it sounded very romantic that we have open borders with one country, but it is of equal concern. This is apart from the illegal immigrants that are coming in. These are people who are coming in large numbers. They are all over. They're freely moving. Once within the country, they can freely move around. And they have reached Kerala, Professor Narayanan, and Tamil Nadu too, in large numbers. And don't we have enough people in our country to educate, house, and find jobs for? Do we need such distractions? But there is a more serious aspect to this kind of immigration. There may be people who are coming in search of jobs, but there are also terrorists sneaking in. Who can stop that? It's not easy. The religious demography in some of our districts and states has drastically changed over the last 30 years. And it is not because of population growth or conversion alone. It is because illegal immigrants have come in, acquired citizenship, purchased land, and become Indians. In some districts in West Bengal, Kerala, and Chhattisgarh, I have visited some of these places. The locals have been selling their properties and moving out. Now, is that not a cause for concern? I think, very simply put, a time has come for India to take its border management very seriously. And I hope Mr. Doval will be listening to this. We need foolproof fencing, electrified wherever required. I think that's my view on it.
And very true, because yes, we have been these about these threats I have been hearing from my classmates, whether it's Jammu Kashmir, whether it is the eastern part of India. But Ganesh, I'd like to hear from you. What are your thoughts on these internal and external threats? You coming from South India.
Yeah, like I couldn't agree with Nivedita ji more, and we have to look at the funding parts. One of the personal experiences, like we were catering for a birthday party which was to be delivered in a church. A friend who wanted a potluck kind of a thing. So we went to the church. It was a Tamil church, and the we happened to sit through some part of the sermon. Towards the end of it, the priest was saying, "Oh, last month, whatever we collected, we sent it to Bihar. We built two churches there, and we converted so many people. So it is from our own people, right? They take money which they earn from here, send it to India, and they do conversion as a mission.
They don't even hide it.
Yes, and
Not
it
even.
was openly bragged about, right? And when you talk about it, you are a Sanghi, right? You are anti-national kind of a feeling they want to put through. Like, for example, like when I was the secretary of Tamil Changam here, we made sure that any function we go in a dhoti and a shirt. No more suits. Like earlier, it used to be a practice like, oh, you need to wear a jacket to come to Tamil Changam program. No, you are not a Tamil if you wearing a jacket. Wear your vesti, right? Like in South Florida, you don't need a jacket. It's always hot. So those kind of practices we need to start following. And the other thing is when you're going to a temple, people are afraid of wearing a tilak. Like where else are you going to wear? You go to Indian function, right? It is a threat that is internal to us now. We have been brainwashed into thinking into like whatever you do, if you follow your culture, you're backward. You're not, right? That needs to be um, instilled in people, right? And as far as possible, I try to make sure that I follow through on this. We went to the state house here to declare Diwali as a um, recognized holiday in Florida. We were in kurta pajama, and then the person who sponsored that bill was honored in Tampa. I went in dhoti and shirt, right? And then, like people are asking, "You're going to meet the Senate minority leader. Why are you going in dhoti?" I said, "She's not wearing dhoti for me, right? She's not coming in pants. She's coming in her dress. Why can't I go in my dress, right?" And I'm honoring her for declaring Diwali as a holiday, right? Why not? And people are like, when I went there are a lot of people who were in pant shirt, and then, and interestingly, the person who came there was also running a Ayappa temple in Tampa. He says, if I had known you were going to come this way, I would have come in a dhoti also. Why do somebody else have to do that for you to wear a dhoti, right? For your own function. So those are the cultural things which we have been brainwashed to not follow, and that is our degradation of the society. The other thing is the halal economy. I can't stop talking about it. People don't have a clue of what it is, and um, it's rampant abuse. Like, why do you need a cement which is halal? Why do you need a vegetable packet, right? Halal certified. Vegetable samosa, halal certified. You go to any Indian store here, go to purchase it. Most of the things are halal certified.
Halal
We
certified.
have one or two brands that are non-halal certified. I directly go for them. Hope they don't convert and become halal certified themselves. Like one of the examples is like I went to buy rose water for an abhishekam in the temple,
Mhm.
Shiva temple. Guess what? Lakshmi brand is halal certified,
Oh my God.
right? And I got a brand from Lebanon which is not halal certified, rose water. So I had to buy Lebanon rose water for my Shiva Abhishekam, but I cannot buy a Lakshmi brand, right? Those are the kind of things that is happening, and most of our people don't have a clue about that. And if you talk about it, you are a Sanghi, you are a BJP, you are whatever labels they want to give you, they give you. And again, it doesn't bother me anymore. I keep talking, right? And same thing with our history, right? Like we read about our invaders, we don't talk about our um, leaders in the past. You see the plight of Kashmiri Hindus, right? I was in Greater Kailash when this happened in '89. I didn't have a clue how to do what, right? Yes, I'm also guilty of not helping them when they were there. But that time, one, I didn't have the means. Two, no clue, right? If I was in this position, then probably I would have done a little more.
Oh, these are the things which plague us, which worry us. Um, we were in New York just a few weeks back, and I'm surprised to see the changes that are happening. There's not a single vendor, street vendor out there who is not halal, and they openly they put it out there on their all the street vendors I'm talking about. So the cards that they have, they just put it out there, and I just wonder that I mean, do other people have the liberty of putting what they want? I mean, can we put something like Sattvic certified out there? Would that be accepted? It's a quite big question, but I would move on to Shashank and ask about his thoughts and his views on um, these inner and internal and external threats and enemies.
Right, and I agree with what Ganesh ji was mentioning about halal. Um, it's a huge economy for them, and as he said, we are funding our own destruction. So, and apart from what Nivedita ji has mentioned and Ganesh ji has mentioned, I worry a bit more about the undeclared ones than the ones that we can actually see. What I mean by that is in our in our lifetime, or at least in our parents' lifetime, for most of us here, Northeast went from being like 90% Hindu to 90% Christianity. Over the course of 800 years, we lost about 40,000 temples. The the wave after wave of brutal invasion was such that the Birla Temple in Delhi is the oldest temple in 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 New Delhi. Can you imagine that the capital city, the Indraprastha of the Pandavas, where we have had civilization and things like that for more than 5,000 years. The oldest temple in Delhi is a 100-year-old Birla temple. Sri Sitaram Goel in his book Hindu Temples and What Happened to Them lists about 40,000 of them which were destroyed, and we got back one. The rest, I don't know when we'll get it. And this is just from the known enemies, right? Coming to the other ones, as Ganeshi and Nivedita ji had mentioned, there are conversions which are happening right across India in Chhattisgarh, be it Chhattisgarh or Tamil Nadu. I am from Telugu state, so I know how things were. They are improving right now, especially after the FCRA bill was brought in, where anyone sending money to an organization out of India has to have um, can only open an account in SBI in Delhi. That has put a big, that has become a very big bottleneck for many of the so-called NGOs sending money for nefarious purposes. At least to the best of my knowledge, at least I'm talking about from the Telugu states. And Narayananji had mentioned this earlier, that as we get more prosperous, as our economy increases, we start beginning to threaten the existing world order or the existing rules based order. We will start seeing threats again. What I mean by that is we'll see more and more like cookies type uh, threats, from which Nivedita ji mentioned in Manipur, and also ISIS K type of threats across the country. Um, I don't want to sound so negative. I'm a very positive person. I'm confident that we will counter this effectively, not because we are a superpower, but because we do not have a choice. When
So,
pushed, we will make a stand and we will make it count. We will prevail. Sorry,
so
you were saying something.
no, because you mentioned weapons and you mentioned war. So I was just thinking about this is an area where Narayananji has a lot of interest. He's written articles and he is very knowledgeable. Narayananji, I would like to know your thoughts. This military threat that we are facing from our neighbors, and what are your thoughts on, do we need to develop technology internally, or how do we go about this?
I'm a very peaceful person, but I happen to believe that paritranaya sadhunam cannot be done. The reality of it, unless you're willing to do the other part, and you
Yes,
have to prepare for it.
the other
So
part
the
is the
military threat,
dushkritam that you're talking about, right?
vinashaya cha dushkritam. Okay. The military threat is countered by racing to buy while you have money and to develop technology, to build field weapons and train warriors. Of course, in this, I hope people read my latest book on digital twins for technology. But anyway, let's go on. Also, by conveying a credible deterrent that we will actually use weapons of mass destruction, not just talk about it. And it has to be a credible deterrent. But there are other threats. The modern invasion, if you look around, starts in a very, very almost a predictable process. Foreign funded propaganda, which starts by saying you're oppressing minorities. India is not a democracy, it's not a free country. Minorities in India are oppressed every day. Then it goes to violent agitations, extremely violent agitations. You have seen, I very whatever opinion about the present government, I call it a government, not a regime in Iran. But you have seen the systematic process to basically destroy the regime, no matter what happens to the population. The obscene pretense, that's the only way I can describe it, of caring about democracy and human rights by the same people who created the ISIS. Unfortunately, there's no doubt about that anymore. They don't even try to hide it. I think I once wrote a paper on what was happening in Syria. Unfortunately, things got a whole lot worse after that. So this accusation is used to attack nations. And my graduate thesis advisor, Professor Strele, who was very American-born, American patriot, used to say that the United States never goes to war unless it is about oil. Okay. He claimed that the Vietnam War even was because there was oil in the Gulf of Tonkin. Anyway, so these the nations that are attacked are coincidentally all rich in natural resources or strategic location. Let's not talk about Greenland. Nigeria with oil. Nigeria is oil. Myanmar, strategic location. South Africa, both. Now, the massive violation of basic human rights of Hindus in Bangladesh and Pakistan, of Muslims in Xinjiang, to Buddhists in Tibet, and everyone in Haiti or the Maladweep, these are all largely ignored. So human rights don't matter there. Christians and Shia Alawite Muslims. Now remember, the Nigeria thing is about defending Christians. Unfortunately, Christians in Syria apparently do not deserve any such protection. Christians and Shia Alawite Muslims face genocide in Syria. I don't know if there's anybody left there of that. They're genocide. And the Kurds now. The so-called flood of hate posts in the US, which is obviously tolerated by the authorities. For people like me who have been studying those things unfortunately, for a long time, those are Pakistanis trying to, that's what they do best, incite racist, bigoted hatred, and they invariably end up shooting themselves in the foot by doing that. It started out against Indians, Hindus, but now they hurt Christians much more in the USA. So the ancient bigotry and hatreds are very much alive as well. Ghazwa-e Hind is still the aim of some of our neighbors, as you know. The time to combat such attacks is while it can still be done without massive violence. I'm not an advocate of going to nuclear weapons or BrahMos at the smallest provocation, but it has to be done without all those things while you can. And that time is now for Bharat. Proactive, preemptive action. Then, of course, there is a massively funded, organized cultural invasion, which people have not started talking about. The target is that demographic dividend, those 700 million people, young people, who people think are very, very gullible and vulnerable. This is aimed both to loot and to enslave that gullible demographic dividend. The multinational conversionist corporations, I don't call them religious organizations, they're conversionist corporations. Okay, they count their success in the number of so-called sheep that are converted or unbelievers who are killed or enslaved. Why is this acceptable? Why is it not being talked about more? Both aim to destroy Bharatam as it exists today, simply because we are peaceful people minding our own business. But this is the elephant in the room, is it not?
Yes, Narayananji, it is. Sorry, Anjali.
Oh no, that's what I just remembered that he said that they are looking for the sheep, and I was going to say the same thing. What about the elephant that is in the room? So you picked up my thoughts. Go ahead, Nivedita.
Yeah. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's be sincere and honest here. And Narayananji talked about the multinationals from outside and what's happening in other countries. What was happening in UP? And I will come to that. Now, where should India draw the line between freedom of choosing religion and the evil of conversion? There has to be a line drawn somewhere. After all, there are districts which were 30% or 12%, in fact, in Bengal, 12% minority are now 70% minority. Same thing is happening in Tamil Nadu. Kerala, of course, it is happening. I think it's important to accept that forced or distress conversions happen in large numbers. Some may argue, what is wrong with that? In fact, in UP, I'm living there now, part of NCR, and Ganesh talked about the halal syndrome. There was a rule which said that companies that were set up, startups, other companies that were set up, and if they so required that their products had to be halal certified, then the persons employed also had to be of that religion. As a result, in certain areas where industrial towns or industrial areas where parks were set up, There were large scale conversions in UP over the last, let's say, 30 years, 40 years. And the government actually was a part of it. Government was abetting it. Uh, so, what is wrong with that, you may ask? Isn't conversion for the sake of getting a bag of rice or getting a job forced conversion? I would say so. And I think one has to be honest here. If a person living in total penury gets gainful employment by changing his religion, is there nothing wrong in that? I think we have to sit up and take note of it. It is also time that we start looking within. As Swami Vivekananda had said, that if Hinduism or Sanatan has to survive, it has to grow, it has to become more inclusive. And that is important. We know that caste, creed, dharma, all these are practices introduced later as part of religion. They were not there in our ancient texts. Though no religious text had ever said that this can be done, but these were brought in.
Very
All the
true.
divisions that came were created by man because human beings are divisive. We know it. By nature, we are exploitative, we are divisive. So we have to find those within ourselves and we need to get rid of them. And I'm so happy that people like Ganesh ji and Shashank ji are doing that. We need to get out of that pure Hindu dharma. We need to get out that pure Hindu dharma which is there and which has often been, lost sight of. Uh, and it is not there in any religious text as such, but it's all there as the basis of all religious text. We need to get to believe that the ultimate oneness of one supreme being we worship, who is our Ishta Devata, whether it is Shiva, whether it is Durga, Kali, or Vishnu, but ultimately we need to believe that these are all the Paramatma residing in every human being, in each of us. That's what Hindu religion is. Every living being, each thing, even a stone, even a rock, has some bit of the supreme in it. You may choose your own path to God to pray, communicate through Jesus or Muhammad or any other religion, but they all lead to one supreme being. That indeed is the crux of Advaita Vedanta, which is the basis of Hindu religion, and that is also the core from which Sanatan Dharma or Hinduism has risen.
Yes, and that is what is inclusiveness all about. But the tragedy is that we believe in inclusiveness. We've grown up with this thought of inclusiveness that we include everyone, but we are not reciprocated the same manner. So, Shashank, what do you have to say about this? Whatever Nivedita said just now about inclusiveness and these thoughts on Swami Vivekananda. He did talk about inclusiveness.
Right. And I was just going to say, I was reminded of the other saying, very famous saying of Swami Vivekananda, where he said, you know, each Hindu who converts is not just one Hindu less, it is one enemy more. Our guiding philosophy for the longest time was Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, which means that there is only one truth, but Vipra is learned people tell it in multiple ways. But I strongly believe that it is applicable only to the religions which are based on dharma. Our interactions for the last 1,000 years has shown that people who believe in converting either by sword or torture don't believe in this philosophy, right? So so that brings me to another point, like how do we counter that and Bhagavan himself has shown us a way. In Mahabharata, Sri Krishna uses kapatam or sleight of hand to defeat the Kauravas, right? In the Kurukshetra, he tells Yudhishthira to say, Ashwattama hataha narova kunjarova, right? So was it double distilled dharma as some people claim right now? And that's another debate which has been going on for 5,000 years. But you know what I mean. But as an ardent follower of Advaita Vedanta, I totally agree with what Nivedita ji has said. You know, but at the same time, however, I believe that we should stand our ground and protect our Sanatana Dharma from these kinds of attacks. As Sringeri Jagadguru Sri Vichekara Bharati ji in his Vijay Yatra in Delhi recently, maybe in December, I believe, he said in one of his Anugrah Bhashanams, where he said, Deva and Desha are our two eyes, so we should protect them with whatever it takes. I think that is where that I know where we are currently, and that is where I would like us to, you know, see for the next few years until we have these conflicts resolved, or at least, under control.
Those were real pearls of wisdom said by uh, the Shankaracharya ji of Sringeri Math. Definitely a very holy and wise sage he is. I was thinking, let's take a break and let's come back. So, audience, I hope you're enjoying this program. We'll be back in just 5 minutes. Welcome back, viewers, to our 13th episode of Bharat FM on the spirituality and spiritual freedom in the superpower India. And I'm going to go back to Ganesh. We are having a very interesting debate. And uh, Ganesh, I would like to ask you that, the other panelists, they've made many points about Desh and Dharma, inclusiveness, and especially, when it comes to our 5,000-year-old belief, and of course, our temples. Approximately 40,000 of them were destroyed. And we know that you are involved in getting those temples either maybe like reestablished or rebuilt. I don't know if they are existing in this current age that we are in, were they completely destroyed? So just would like to know from you, what is your take on this?
Yeah, adding to the other panelists, one of the important things we need to do is to bring awareness to the grassroots. Because if you go to a temple in Tamil Nadu, it's classified as either it's a private temple, which is Grama Devata, and what we call as a Yellai Kapan, which is basically a protective deity, or it becomes a temple owned by the government, which is far from the truth. And people don't really care about their temples, right? So temples used to be our go-to place for socializing and our culture, our education, everything. Now it is just treated as a building which is owned by the government, and if they feel like they go there, or just ignore it, right? And they think that government supports it. Unfortunately, at least in Tamil Nadu, the government doesn't do anything for the temple. Even if they do it, it is to make money out of it. Basically, they will take money from the temple and build a hotel for supposedly the devotees, but they would be taking away. First of all, the contracts are given to their goons. They siphon off money that way, and then once the income starts coming, it's not given to the temple; it's taken away by the government, or worse yet, it is taken away by the ruling party members for their personal gains. If you look at any of the temples, the archakas are paid, most of them are paid 700 rupees. In Tamil Nadu, we have about 44,000 temples that are under HRMC control. That is not, I'm not talking about any of the private temples like um, the ones run by individuals or mutts and other things, and of which 97% of them are in a shape where they cannot even perform one puja a day, or some of them are even in a worse shape that they can't even light a lamp in the temple. That's where we are in Tamil Nadu, right? And the government pays 700 rupees for the archaka for the whole uh, month, and they have to take care of the electricity bill and other things using that money. So practically, they don't pay anything to the archakas. And in one of the temples we support, the one which you see in the background here, um, they have a security person who's supposed to be there, and he's paid 500 rupees a month, and which is not paid regularly, right? And one of the ways we can help prevent the conversions and other things we talk about is to help people who are in dire straits, right? For example, like when we went to the temple in November, the security person's wife came, and she was, as we were leaving, she came to me and she was saying something like, I need about, it's going to cost me about 800 rupees to buy something and stuff like that. I had 500 rupees with me. I gave it to her, and then after coming to US, I spoke to the priest of the temple, and I was asking, like, what is she in trouble, right? She said she was in trouble. She needed 800. I had 500. I gave it to her. And I asked him what is the whole story. And then he said, oh, she was asking for a school bag, uniform, and a shoe for her kid, right? And the total is going to cost some around 2,500 rupees. I said, okay, I'll transfer the money to you. You go and buy it and give it to her, right? So these are small, small things that people require. And if as Hindus we don't support them, and we cannot blame them for converting for 100 bag of rice, right? So that is something that we are trying to do something about, trying to set up education stuff for the village kids, trying to help with the demographic change, right? Like how to prevent it, how to instill in new dharmic values. Maybe later in the program, I would elaborate on some of the activities we do and how we do it. Again, it is not for bragging about it. It is to set as an example or a model for others to follow. That's what we're trying to do. And hopefully it will help us prevent some of the demographic change that is happening.
That is a big step.
Yeah. So,
Definitely.
Anjali, you are quiet and guiding all of us, but we happen to know that you do so much to highlight the causes of Hindus. Please tell us your take briefly. I know it will take hours to tell us all of the things you do. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Narayananji. I think I'm just touching the surface, and whatever I'm doing, I'm trying, whatever little bit time I get from work, from family, I try to contribute my bit, and hoping that it will make some difference. So there are quite a few areas where I'm trying to touch, whether it comes to cultural preservation or it comes to accurate representation of our history. Uh, and today, we spoke about protection of sacred sites and institutions, and of course, supporting the global Hindu diaspora. I uh, I volunteer for an organization called Hindu Action, and I am the director for the Lost Daughters of Sindh, which highlights the plight of Hindu girls, minority girls, Hindu Christians, and the other minority girls living in Pakistan who are abducted on a daily basis, at least three each day. So we recently did a congressional briefing in the capital, 16th of January. Uh, we held an exhibition in Arizona 23rd of November, where the Jewish community also helped us, they supported us and collaborated with us. And Dr. Mordechai Kedar, who is a very eminent speaker and a personality in Israel, he came all the way from Israel to support this cause. And also, since I do have a daughter who is growing, I do try to see that she develops some values that are rooted in Dharma, and make sure that I support some of the causes which are some of the community leaders out here. For example, there is an organization called Bharat Heritage Organizations, which is headed by Ramya Ranganathan, and she recently did a very big Shankranti Mela. Even though I was not able to attend, but I have always supported her and highlighted whatever she tries to do on the Bharat FM, Bharat TV platform. And just like her, I have supported a lot of other programs and other Hindu voices on this platform. Um, and recently, that is this Saturday, we held a silent rally to support the the Bangladeshi Hindus who are being brutally massacred in Bangladesh. So yes, here and there, I do try to help, and I do try to do my bit. That's all I can say. It's it's a tiny bit, and I do not know to what extent it's going to make a difference, but I just know one thing, that each one of us, without exception, no matter how busy we are, we have to do at least something, even if it is just 5 minutes a day. If nothing else, in your daily prayers, please pray for these souls who are suffering, our Hindu brothers and sisters, whether it is Pakistan, whether it is Bangladesh. uh, they need our prayers. They do. And of course, some work on the ground as well. But if you think that it is difficult to do that, prayers don't cost anything. So that was my take, Narayananji. And yeah, what about you? What is your
Yeah.
take?
So, Anjali, I have to say this. I think by the definition, I mean, this is somebody who's gone and talked to the United States Congress, not the Indian National Congress. This is our the people on Capitol Hill. By the definition, in military terms in my household, you know who is the Supreme HQ. Well, by the definition used by Supreme HQ, you now qualify as a top-level celebrity. She's always been wanting to meet a celebrity, and you're there. Thank you so much. But Bharatam has been trying to find the right balance, and as we've been saying, and that changes with the region. Some parts are long past the point of stopping conversions. So there I would say that the best defense against further invasion is actually where the locals realize that foreign influence is foreign. Okay? It is not in their interest. In this respect, I think the Pakistanis' hate campaigns in the US are funny. They're targeting Indian Christians even more than they're targeting Indian Hindus. Now, let me say this. At a recent event, it was a very frightening experience when I had to prepare for it. I had to speak at a Hindu ashramam, I won't name it. The reason I was asked is because they had to have a chief guest. The person who runs it is an old friend of mine. And he said, hey, we had to have a chief guest. And they were clearly scraping the bottom of the barrel. There was 1 week to go, so they said, you're it, come and talk. But I had to talk, followed by a Christian Reverend Father from the same locality, an Islamic Maulavi who had come from Kollam in the deep south of Kerala, just to attend this Hindu event and see his family's old friends. And the local representative our equivalent of, not Congress, but City Council, Marxist communist comrade politician. She unfortunately did not show up. Very scary experience preparing for it, but it turned out extremely well. They were very nice. I came away with this sense, and that's what I want to talk about. People do not agree that everyone should believe the same. Okay, I mean, if you talk to people across faith, they don't agree that everyone should believe the same. And they feel that efforts to do that, force someone or other, of course, that's when they are in the minority, mind you, such efforts will compromise the basic beliefs of someone or other of the minorities. Instead, the effort must be to bring people together for a common cause. And this is the message that I was getting from the others. They are, yes, willing to talk, and they are interested in bringing people together in a common cause. And the nation is a common cause. Okay. I mean, yes, the universe and the whole world is a common cause too, but the nation is a common cause, and there everyone can indeed get together. So let me speak for a moment as someone who lived most of my life in nations where Hindus, even Indians, were a tiny, tiny minority. Once you live in a certain nation, it doesn't really matter what spiritual beliefs you have, as long as you are allowed to practice them and you have equal rights. Okay, you live or die by the fortunes of your neighbors. You do not succeed by putting down your neighbors. You're better off if they are also thriving. Most of India's minorities understand that reality all too well. Obviously, not everyone, not politicians in some parts. Actually, they're far more Indian than I am, or I can ever be, which is why there is so much effort to divide them. That is also what is important to understand. The effort is to divide and destroy that amity, that recognition that they are also Indians, and that is very bad news, to incite them. This was done, remember Punjab in the late 1970s. Obviously foreign incited, whatever, but look how disastrous that was. They've failed in the past, but remember, the enemy only has to win once. Vijayanagaram is the example, okay? Enemy only has to win once. The Israelis are extremely conscious of that every day when they wake up. The real challenge, however, is to take the initiative and get to the point where the other side does not want to mess with you. So with enthusiastic participation from all, we must win. Let me just say one more thing that I actually mentioned in that Somanath syndrome thing. I have heard about the movie about whoever kept attacking the Punjab 8 times or whatever, and eventually won. And that was a mistake because they only defended. So I said I admire that Alauddin, what's his name, who was basically a menace to humanity, but he did one thing really right. He did one thing very right. When the Afghans came and tried to attack, he not only defended, he went all the way to Afghanistan and did not try to colonize them, just destroyed. Vinashaya cha dushkrutam. And that ended that threat for at least a few lifetimes beyond that. This is the object lesson. It's not enough to, we defended. No, you had to destroy the enemy. Okay. The big weakness for over 1,000 years since Somanath was first looted is that Hindus were impoverished. Our beliefs and traditions were trampled. Our history was erased and replaced with various theories which are now being debunked. The temples were decaying. Inimicable interests were, with lots of ready illegal cash, were buying up all the surroundings. This is the reality in Kerala. Demoralization followed by outright conquest elsewhere in India. So,
yeah. Thanks, Narayananji. I totally agree with what you say, but that's rather aggressive. But you're right. I was in Ujjain and Indore last week, and we visited the Mahakal temple that has a history of over 2,000 plus years, and it's an architectural marvel. A lot of things there even now exist, despite the fact that it was destroyed more than 3 times, but it still stands. I don't know the total history yet. I'm reading it, but once I do, I'll definitely share with you at some point. Our attention should be on generating basic documents, pamphlets, monographs, short documentaries on these temples and centers of spiritual practices so that posterity remembers them. Unfortunately, we don't have them. We also need to train a section of our local youth with awareness and reliable knowledge on these places that are of archaeological, historical, and religious importance. We don't do that. Fortunately, this year's budget talks about training guides in, I think, 2,000 or 20,000 of our tourist sites, including religious sites. I think that is a good beginning. The temple management authorities need to get their acts together. They should focus on maintaining the sanctity of the sanctum sanctorum, the cleanliness of the surroundings, the water bodies that often are there near our temples, and to avoid ostentatious glitz and extravagance. That is something that doesn't appeal to me. And as Ganeshji said, temples are our places of peace and tranquility. Let's not convert them into malls. Didn't our forefathers teach us simplicity and gentle behavior? I think that is the core of Hindu religion, of Advaita Vedanta, until we are challenged, Narayananji. Unfortunately, with our colonial past, we often lost sight of it. But let's try and bring that back. So, spirituality, the simplicity that we had, and a change in our mindset. I think that is very important. And a final point, I often find, and that's part of Hindu religion, I guess, a lot of divisiveness amongst us. I think that also needs to be got rid of. And I think that's where Advaita Vedanta helps, because at the core lies the Advaita belief of oneness, that we are all one and we all have a bit of spirit and a bit of godliness in us. That's what Swami Vivekananda said. Thanks.
Yeah, a bit of spirit and bit of godliness in us. Absolutely. Uh, because, yeah, God resides in everyone. And that, uh, I mean, I've just heard many, many views about, this Advaita, this Nirakar aspect of God and the Advaita aspect of God. But I would like to hear from Shashank. Shashank, what are your views?
Sure. Thank you. What Professor and Nivedita ji, or they hit the nail on the head. It's. I would say it's at the crux of their argument, whatever they mention, is that the inferiority complex that has been fed to us. That seems to be the root cause for it, and also the colonized mindset, if I can say so. Because one prime example is when Professor said he was mentioning about Aladdin Khilji, and he forgot conveniently about Skandagupta, who did the same to Hunas. He actually destroyed Hunas, went to the steppe lands and destroyed Hunas, and that could,
See,
you know.
that's not in our history text. I'm sorry, I got a
I
passing
haven't
grade
read
in
it.
history.
So then you should hear the speech given by our Honorable Amit Shah on Skandagupta. One of the most brilliant speeches he's ever given. But you know what I mean? That our decolonization should, and that again drives back to the same point that the inferiority complex that has been given to us from at least 100 years, 100 and 200 years, ever since the Brits started rewriting our history. Max Muller and everybody tried to take away our scientific temperament. The one thing that I love about Sanatana Dharma is its agility. When Buddhism prevailed, we took some concepts of Buddhism, absorbed it into the Dharma, and wherever we expanded, we did take the good qualities of that place, and it became part of the Hinduism kind of a thing. And
Mm.
Modi ji in his speech at Somnath, where we started the episode, he talks about exact same thing, resilience, our resilience over the centuries, our victory of our civilizations, and how temples were destroyed not just for the wealth, but because they formed the fulcrum of our civilization, right? And we talked about the Mandironomics, if I remember it right, a few episodes ago, where we said that temples were the place where our civilization, where the temples were the network for our civilization's growth, right? And so all that I'm trying to tell is that as we grow stronger, one of the positive effects I would think is our inferiority complex will go down. We don't want to rule the world. We don't even want to rule the Indian subcontinent. We just want to be treated as equals and, left alone to practice the dharma of our ancestors. And I believe that as we get stronger, both, militarily, technologically, economically, I think we will get to a point where we will be able to uh, where we'll be left alone, or we'll be treated as equals for all practical purposes. And that uh, you know uh, going back to the exact same point where we all started, like what is the root causes, I would say, inferiority complex.
But as Indians, we have much more access to the rest of the world. So isn't it natural that people they adopt the ways of the people elsewhere? But at what point does it become a cultural invasion? Let me put this question to Ganesh ji first, and then I would request Nivedita also to give some response on this one. So Ganesh ji, you go first, please.
Yeah, before I answer that question, like a couple of points about what Nivedita ji and Shashank ji was talking about in terms of one is about the inferiority complex, right? Like when you study about only the foreigners, it implies that you didn't do anything, right? Your ancestors didn't do anything. And that's where it stems from. So
Correct.
unless we educate our kids about our um, past, we are not going to win this war because leftists are already on us every day, right? Saying like, hey, you are rewriting the history, you are rewriting the history. No, we are telling you the history as it happened rather than what you wrote. And the other thing is answering um, Nivedita ji's assertion that there are a couple of websites. One, we started this dharmicplatform.org. The reason why we named it Dharmic Platform is basically to collect all the dharmic information as much as possible and make it available to people. And there is another site run by, I think he's a PhD student in IIT Bombay, and it is templesofindia.org. And that one has a collection of, I think, more than 60,000 temples.
60,000.
And it is basically, it's a democratized platform. You can go and add your temples in the street corner and write about their history. You can put their location. You can also add their timings and what they are famous for. Everything you can add. There is a curator who looks at it and then approves it.
Ganesh, can I request you to please repeat these two addresses or these two URLs? So one is the uh,
Dharmicplatform.org.
dharmicplatform.org. Okay.
Yeah, that
So
is
we
the run. That is the site we run.
okay.
Wherever we support temples, we add those. Right, it's still in the startup stage, but we want to have history of every temple we support and every temple we intend to support. Right,
Dharmic dharmic
platform.
dharmicplatform.org. Okay,
Yeah,
DHARMICPLATFORM.org. So viewers,
yeah.
if you're watching this program, please take a note of that, dharmicplatform.org. And which one was the other one?
Templesofindia.org.
templesofindia.org, where you can enter the name of your temple and the history of your temple. I think these are uh, two very great platforms where we can revive our lost history. And thank you so much for
And Anjali ji,
sharing.
can I make a suggestion that can you add these websites to the description under the video whenever we get publish it?
Sure, absolutely. I think
Thank you.
that's yeah. Thank you for reminding me of that. We will do that. We will add this in our description. Um, but one thought has been bothering me for a long time. A large number of Gen Z and even Gen X, they identify themselves as atheists. I don't know if it was something in their upbringing, but what are your thoughts on this, Nivedita?
Yes, interesting, Anjali, you say that because I meet a lot of Gen Z people, when I speak, go out to speak, or whether here or outside. Uh, Many of them say that they are non believers. They're Hindus. They were born Hindus. They say they're non believers or they're atheists or they're agnostics. They love saying that. Uh, I think there is something, maybe, I think, looking at it, to the past, something probably we could have done better. Of course, there was a lot of things that the government could have done better, that society could have done better, but also as families, we could have done better. And I think that has been one of the reasons. Let me be a little personal, Anjali, if you permit me. I'm a little uncomfortable doing it, but I think it'll help me make my
Oh,
point.
absolutely. Please feel free. We are all family here, and we are talking to our extended family in Bharat and outside
Yeah.
Bharat. So
I
please
don't
feel.
know. I'm often known as more of a Malayali, but I come from a Bengali family, a very well educated, reasonably well off professional scientists, yet very strong believers. My grandfather was part of the freedom movement in his college days until his father pulled him away and said, "Enough of it. You get down to business now." Uh, and I learned very strangely. I learned the words rationalism, empiricism first from my dadu, my grandfather. He would talk about all that. So I was educated in a so-called missionary school, as you know. My father having been a civil servant, children had to go to what is called quote unquote convent schools in India, where we had Irish nuns. I had Irish nuns as our teachers, a few Malayalis too, of course. Yet at home, we learnt our prayers by heart. We were explained their meanings, we read the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, asked questions, and discussed characters threadbare. Which actions of Bhima I didn't like, or which ones of Yudhishthira were actually showed Yudhishthira as intolerably weak. But listen, each statement had to be argued rationally. There was no place for emotions there. Some arguments got settled, some remained unsettled. So while in school, uh, we didn't do that because in school, we were taught the Bible, we learned the Lord's Prayer, went to church, we went to chapel when our teachers took us there, and even read stories from the Bible, we discussed it. Yet, we never converted. We remained Hindus. So we were taught to ask questions. And now I now realize my religious beliefs are close to Advaita Vedanta philosophy because that's, I think, I feel that is the pinnacle of a person's beliefs. To believe that there is godliness in each of us, in each human being, and nobody is less than any other. I think that is what human beings are. And that's what makes us different from animals. And isn't that the beauty of Hindu religion, which comes from this Advaita philosophy? It is so vast and inclusive and all embracing. You can ask any questions, you can challenge it, you can argue, you can dispute, so much so that even the Charvaks, the so called atheists in within the Hindu society, they were also taken as part of Hindu Advaita Vedanta philosophy. So later, when I saw the North and the South, I realized how different Bengal is. The point I'm trying to make, Anjali, is how important it is for a child's upbringing in shaping their ethical and spiritual psyche that are the cornerstones of any religious beliefs, that they start in the family. That's very important. The second important highlight that is I want to make is inclusivity. Allow anyone who wishes into your homes, but be steady and strong in your own beliefs. Never give that up unless there is reason for you to do so. And therefore, I had friends from every religion, every community, and my parents welcomed them to our homes. We didn't have any discrimination there. The third is the need to learn to not deride others and others' beliefs, their way of life, and not get enamored or carried away by them. That often happens, the glitz and the glamour and speaking English, etc. You get attracted to it. So I think that is important. And the fourth thing is, within this Hindu, the Sanatanis, there has to be a unity. They need to understand each other. Often I find that is lacking. And that, I think, makes it important. I just want to add one thing, Anjali, with your permission.
Sure.
Ganesh ji mentioned about the websites where he's putting the information. Ganesh, we recently were at the music festival in Chennai, and we went for a leg dem, which was on somebody called Achala Kavi, and he is the person who wrote the first Ramayana in Tamil, and he was from the 11th century, 10th and 11th centuries. And he grew up, and his upbringing was in a place called Taragampadi, which is a coastal town in Tamil Nadu. I was looking it up, and when I saw it, I saw that Tamil Nadu government is popularizing that place as a center where there is the oldest Danish fort, talking nothing about Achala Kavi, talking nothing about the Ramayana, etc., etc. I think that's where we have to be. We have to sit up and take note and do something. Thank you.
Yes,
Very insightful.
there are other sites too where Tamil literature is documented. One of my friends here, who is the son of the famous archaeologist Nagaswamy, he is documenting all of those. One, he's digitizing all his father's work, as well as he is an adherent follower of Rajendra Prasad. So he reads a lot about that, and then he translates, and he has written a few books. I will try to get his site as well, and then I'll give it to you, Anjali ji, so you can publish that as well.
Yes, absolutely. I would. Sorry, I'd muted my mic. No, absolutely. We will do that. Those are very, very useful links. And I would love for Bharat TV and Bharat FM to share with the viewers. No, really, thank you for sharing that. But I want to ask this question on identity as an atheist and or as an agnostic to Narayananji, because he has also lived in so many places. What are your what are your views
So,
on?
yeah, and Anjali, if I want to take just a moment. Something that Nivedita ji said triggered a memory that things are not so bad. I mean, modern India Hindus are smart people, really, really smart people. There was a story apparently in modern Great Britain at a primary school. The teacher asked the class to write down one page on the greatest man who ever lived. And the children all wrote down. And they said, I'll give £1 as a reward to the top story, the best story. And they all wrote down and gave it. And the teacher started reading, and one said, Field Marshal Munir of Pakistan, whatever. And then another one said, Osama bin Laden, Sheikh Osama bin Laden. Another one said, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. And it went on, and the teacher was getting pretty depressed. And at the end, last one, she just finished and gave it and said, Jesus Christ. Oh, what a wonderful story. She said, but these are written by Jignesh. And she said, Jignesh, aren't you, what is that, a Hindu? And Jignesh said, "Oh, thank you, but can I have my £1 first?" And so teacher handed the £1. Jignesh carefully pocketed it. And he said, "Of course, teacher, at home we worship only Krishna. But outside the home, for Jignesh, business is business." Okay. So business is business may be one part of this whole thing about what is perceived. But now let me go back. This phrase, identify as atheists or agnostics, brings back a distant memory. 47 years ago, or 40, well, somewhere around that, Indians, particularly Hindus, were a tiny, tiny minority in Atlanta, in the deep southeast of the USA, the so-called Bible Belt. I found that my co-pigs, P-I-G-S, that's a very honorable designation. It means poor Indian graduate students. Yes, were extremely uncomfortable when asked about religion, which is quite rare actually. The workplace basically did not encourage any discussions on religion. We had people from all over the world. So they would say, "Oh, I don't know. I really consider myself equally interested in all religions." Or, "I'm really an agnostic." These are Pakka Brahmanas. I know that, okay? So I was really, once this went around and it came to me, and I had no training in how to lie. So I said, I was born a Hindu, and I'm very much a practicing Hindu. I don't know anything else. I found that this is what actually earns respect from good people. Okay, that was probably the defining moment of the next 46 years. This is where I would like to knock some sense into young people in India, and sadly, their parents. They want to tell people what they think those people want to hear you say. Of course, Jignesh being the stellar exception. Business is business. But this is utterly wrong. Good people anywhere just insist on no nonsense, simple honesty. Okay? I remember a technician in the old days. Today, he would be described as the worst of the so-called MAGA, you know what that is, xenophobe. Okay, extreme xenophobe. That's the only way to describe him. He didn't particularly hate any whatever. He just hated everybody in general. He said if you could figure out that somebody was going to become a manager or administrator when they were born, that would justify abortion right there. Okay. Anyway, most people were afraid to talk to him, but one day he called me in. And he called me aside and said, gave me advice. Said, "Look, kid, you are from India. Your parents brought you up very well. Don't drink this Coca-Cola and coffee and stuff like that. It's all toxic. Drink water and milk like your parents taught you." See, this is the point. People view Indian students as being well brought up by good parents. No matter what you read on nonsense on the Twitter, like I said, that's mostly from Pakistanis and their paid agents. Today, with Indians binge watching the absolute worst, and I mean Indians in India, absolute worst of American and British TV, and the advertisements with all those fake Australian accents, the cultural invasion, if I may call it the cultural dhimitwa, is in full flow. A recent wave, like I said, a tidal wave of bigotry and hatred against Indians on Twitter, forget it. That's all Pakistanis and their paid lobbies. But it resonates with the worst elements in any nation, in this case, the USA. They're a bunch of losers. But this should have one good effect. I hope it wakes up some Indians in America and in Indians in India to understand that simply trying to act like other cultures does not win any acceptance or brownie points, no pun intended, from such people. The good ones accept you on your merits, and you should give no space at all to the other kinds. Don't tolerate them. So, I mean, what shocked me recently was that today's old Hindi song videos on YouTube. I now have a good set of headphones, so I get to enjoy them while Supreme HQ is watching her horrible Malayalam movies where all people screaming and hollering. But these YouTube videos feature only Westerners, white Westerners. Only they have human emotions. No Japanese, no Africans, no Eskimos, no Inuits, no Chinese, no Polynesians, no Indonesians. That constitutes the vast majority of humanity. And certainly no dark skinned, beautiful Indians. This is cultural invasion. Uh, I mean, this is commercial. Are today's modern Indians really no better than dim witted racists who discriminate against 90% of humanity? Now, I want to get to this. The theories of the racial divide between North and South or East and West and North Indians are all long discredited, long debunked. Think about it. Today, idlis are recognized properly as IQ pills. You know the term, IQ pill. Okay. And if you make an honest TV commercial, remember the ancient one saying, for the man of action, satisfaction, Charminar or some other cigarette. No. Today, the real man of action is Sundar Pichai or Satya Nadella, and real satisfaction for them is eating idli, dosha, vada, and sambar. Okay. Our image of the divine is Sri Krishnan, Sri Raman, Krishna meaning black like the monsoon cloud at night. Have you thought about this? Too many images show Krishna as white. I understand this. The Vigraham of Sri Raman at Ayodhya is coal black, not white. No fair and lovely, no talcum powder. The Salagramam fossil representing Mahavishnu is coal black, perfect black body in scientific terms. Mahakali, Bhagavati, and Parvati, the paragon of beauty, coal black. So yes, I think we are allowing our spiritual heritage, our culture to all be driven to extinction, stomped on, trampled on. This is not modernity. This is not globalization. This is not freedom. It is the freedom of the rats. And later the children in the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin. They all started dancing and singing to the music coming from that without thinking to go and fall off a cliff. This is the Somanath syndrome all over again, and I think it's beyond ominous.
Professor, if I can, I have a completely different take on it. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. All right. Since we are all going a bit anecdotal,
Yes.
my parents' generation, for most part, grew in a society where communists ruled the education and the social sphere, right, so to speak. There are movies like Coolie or Akali Rajam in Telugu. And Ganeshji, you can correct me. My Tamil is not that good. The same movie was made in Tamil, the Varumaniyan Niram Sigappu, I think, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I saw that movie in Tamil also. So none of these movies talked about any of cultural heritage or spiritual heritage. Nothing. In fact, they mocked us. I come from Hyderabad, where during my dad's time, the biggest student union was PDSU, Progressive Democratic Student Union. Nothing progressive, nothing democratic about it. It was an offshoot of SFI.
Mm.
And the exact opposite was happening in my home when I was growing up. My grandmom was very dharmic. I think we told about that. She taught me stories from Ramayana, Mahabharata, our freedom struggle, Jansang, and everything. And my dad was super spiritual at home, but the moment he stepped out, he would be all uber secular, right? And I thought that's how the world worked when I was a kid. I think, in my opinion, the pivotal moment came in 1990 with the Ram Janmabhoomi, the Rath Yatra of Advani ji. After that, I saw my dad actually go out wearing vibhuti and kumkum every single day to work. And even to this day, he does the same thing. And since I was a kid back then, I continued that tradition, and I always have my kumkum and vibhuti. So do my kids who were born and brought up here in the US. I'm Gen X, almost a millennial, but not yet. Anjali won't allow me, but I'm almost end of Gen X. So the reason I say is many of my friends were like that when we were in our 20s, teens and 20s, 20s. Like, yeah, they were all secular, and not wearing, kumkum, or not going to temples that much. But now that we are in our 40s and 50s, almost every single one of them has turned uber sanatanis. They all go to temples, and we're all bringing up our kids to be more dharmic than we ever were at that age. And Gen Z has taken this to the next level already. The, they started something called bhajan clubbing. I unbelievable. I'm not able to wrap my head around it. I've
Me
tried to
neither.
understand what that is, and it completely blew my head off. Like, what is bhajan clubbing? Whoever came up with that idea, that he deserves a Bharat Ratna or she deserves a Bharat Ratna. Nothing less. And
Indeed.
you have this Gen Z kids like Mithali Thakur, and then there is Nandagovind, the bhajan troupe from Kerala. They're sold out in 2 days in huge big stadiums. You know, the number of atheists probably increased, because of the number itself, but the percentage wise, I think, we are at a much lesser percentage than we were during my dad's when my dad was,
Mhm.
in his 30s, 40s time frame. But that is my take on it. And once my experience has been that once you experience the highs of that the spirituality or spiritualism gives, it is very hard to do anything else. You will, like, it is going to Tirumala and seeing Srivaru. Once you see him, you're hooked for life. You will always want to go back there, like, something like that. That is my take on it.
Yeah, it's really heartening, Shashankji, to know this, because I thought my experience was at the other end. But it's so good to hear that this is happening. And coming back to India and Indian economy, which I have to mention, we talk about, we have this huge high that we are going to become the third biggest economy in the world globally, etc., etc. But you know what? I don't think we'll reach that level unless we set this right, unless the Sanatanis set their house in order. I think that's going to be very, very important, because we may do a lot of things. We may build our infrastructure, we may build our houses and the waterways and so on. But our rivers have to be clean. Our temples have to be in order. Our the people's mindset has to be correct. I think that's where we have to focus, and that's where government needs to be. And therefore, I have been saying and writing on it that I think a time has come when we have to talk about, because Swachh Bharat 3.0. The Swachhata is not just in keeping our homes clean and our areas clean. The Swachhata has to come from cleaning up our minds and cleaning up our water bodies, our lands, our temples. I think that is important. And that's what I hope, Anjali, one day in the future, you will have a session on that too. Thank you.
Yes, yes, of course. There is a saying, cleanliness is godliness, and Swachh Bharat is a step towards that. And talking about reclaiming our temples by taking this first step of cleanliness, I would like to ask Ganesh, because he is the person who has been putting in a lot of efforts in this direction. Ganesh, please tell us about your
Before
work.
Yeah,
before sorry, Anjali, before we go there, I think Professor has his hand
yeah.
raised.
Oh, I'm
I,
Like a
sorry.
very
I,
good
I want to
student,
Go
add a
ahead.
you're
little bit.
ignoring.
Yeah, I want to add a little bit to what Shashank said. He points to a very interesting thing. The wheel is coming around. I do get the sense that a very large number, if not majority, of today's young people really want to be what we want them to be. So I think giving them the guidance and saying this is okay, this is the information that you need, this is the knowledge that you need, is the spark that is needed. Now I'll come across as being really really old fashioned and ancient, but I only recently discovered this YouTube music thing. If you go there, you'll see some abs or see and hear some absolutely fantastic pieces of bhajans set very professionally. My favorite is Saraswati Panchakam. I think it's done by somebody called Neil. Somebody is the force behind it, and a singer. And so many Shivam and Bhagavati and all these things. And these are like nothing you heard in temples long time back. These are fantastic. So the others are uplifting, but these are just, you just really have to go and spend some time there. Thank you.
I think this was a really great discussion. But before I wrap up, I would like to hear from Ganesh ji just something more about his work, about the reclaiming of temples. And Ganesh ji, would you please give us a little bit more of an insight about your work?
Sure. So I started this work about 2.5, 3 years back. I met one of the temple activists, Mr. T.R. Ramesh, in Chennai when I went in 2022, I think. And I was there and I was talking to him. He files a lot of lawsuits against the government and has some impressive wins. End of the day, he doesn't have anything to show for, right? That's when I realized, hey, putting the lawsuit is great, but unless you are fight, unless you know that the person whom you are fighting for also knows that you are fighting for him, unless that happens, how much ever victory you get, it's a practically no use. Because if, for example, a temple destruction was prevented with a high court stay order, and the government goes and destroys the temple anyway, unless there is a grassroots person knows that, hey, this one was blocked by the government, by the courts, nobody is going to block the government from destroying it. So your win sitting in Chennai is of no practical use for somebody who's sitting in, say, way south in Tamil Nadu, right? That's when it struck me that we need to start educating people on the temple ecosystem, and the temples are owned by the devotees, not the government, right? And that's something which we're trying to instill slowly but surely. We try to involve people as much as possible with the daily activities of the temple, right? We give them responsibilities to say for cleaning, right? This looks a very mundane task, but people take pride in that, especially when the archaka, the priest, goes and asks them, hey, can you do this for the temple? They feel privileged, right? Because they've been discriminated so far. So those are the kind of things we try to do there. The other thing is we have set up a Sudharma Trust in India to help with this cause. And we also have a HAPAC in Florida, which is Hindu American Political Action Committee of South Florida. So that one, we create awareness among the elected officials who are Hindus, what we stand for, right? We involve with them in the local level and state level and talk to them. We invite them to our functions and we facilitate them, right? And we give them awards. And if they do any of our work, for example, like as I said, in the State House, they recognize Diwali as a recognized holiday, right? So those kind of efforts we do using that. Also, we have another trust called Dharma Light Foundation, which is started for educating the people about Hinduism, right? HAPAC can do only so much. So it's a sister organization to HAPAC because the Political Action Committee is very restricted in the kind of activities you could do. So we started this Dharma Light Foundation where we are going to educate people and then do other activities that HFI cannot do. So that is also some of the local efforts we're doing. Apart from that, for temples in India, right? We have, as I said, like we have about um, 44,000 temples that need help, right? Some of them are completely destroyed. It needs to be restored. I don't think I have the financial might to go and restore those kind of temples, but at least the ones which are standing, we should be able to do at least two pujas a day,
Yeah.
right? And as a start, we have picked up 5 temples so far. Um, Mostly in near Sirgari in Tamil Nadu. The Kunam temple, the background which you see is from that. And there is another place called Vadarangam, which is in the banks of River Kolidam. They have a um, Shiva temple and a Vishnu temple there. And then we also support a couple of temples in near Tiruvayar, one of which is more than 2,000 years old. They still have the um, what do you say, the tunnel that led the king to the um, palace from the temple, and he's supposed to take the uh, blessings of Bhairava in that temple before he goes to war. And he used to go through that tunnel from the palace. So temples have that much heritage and history, and those are being ignored. And we try to help them at least do two pujas. And we also support about 40 temples with oil lighting. So we supply them with oil and wicks and other things so that at least they have ability to light the lamps in the temple on a daily basis, right? And we try to expand the service beyond um, these two support. The full support includes the honorarium for the priest, milk, flowers, puja supplies, and prasadam on important days. So we identified about 10, 12 important days in a month where they have to put prasadam and in a decent quantity where people could come and eat it like a meal instead of just once, right? So that's why we restricted it to 8, 10 days so that the money can stretch for the whole month. Also, those are the days when people also come. We also are trying to help with Mangalavadhyam, basically Nadaswaram and Davil, and then Oduvar, which who recite Tamil hymns like Tevaram, Tiruvasagam, and other things. And then this year we are trying to tie up with Ekal Vidyalaya to have um, tuition classes in the evening for free for the village kid. As part of that, Ekal also does something good, which ties into our um, mission of teaching the Tamil hymns as well as shlokas and bhajans and stuff like that. So that is our interest. So sponsoring Ekal, we also get this as a additional benefit, right? And we want the kids to learn and perform in the temples so that it forms a base for them for the future. And um, glad to say that we in one of the temples, Shivapuranam was recited by about 15 kids, right? They were allowed to sit next to the Shiva and recite that. So one of the things what we request the priests to do is not to discriminate people when they come in, treat everybody with respect, give them some role to do there so that they get connected with the temples.
So there is,
To that effect, we have had like last week, the prasadam was sponsored by a local in that Kunam temple, right? So we had paid money for that, but the priest came and said, "No, one of our locals sponsored the food." That's the kind of involvement we want. And also we do Velaka Puja, which is basically um, puja for the diya, which the devotees can themselves perform. Last time we did, and we got about 60 ladies from the village and do it. And then this next week, we're going to have one more. Hope we get about 100 this time around. And these are the kind of things we want to do where we involve people and also make sure they are respected, right? People mostly what we see is are longing for respect, and it's cheap, right?
Yes.
It doesn't cost us anything. If we do that, we can revive our temples much faster, as well as kick out the government and restore the glory of temples, and they can become what they were earlier. Thank you.
A very important point out of all these things that you have raised. Yes, supplying oil, doing the pujas, people coming together, and at least 8 to 10 days you are dedicating so that the people can actually, what do you say, maybe revive the sleeping deity or the sleeping devta. But the most important point is what you mentioned at the end, which is the giving of the love and the respect, because these are the forces which are actually going to revive the sleeping energies. Because once pujas etc are not done in a temple for many many decades or maybe several hundred years, I think that the deity doesn't reside there anymore, or just maybe leaves that place or sleeps. That's what I have read. But when you after when once you perform these rituals, and more than anything, if we get back to those core values of Sanatan, which is embracing everyone, which Sri Ram did, which Sri Krishna did, I think that is what is going to bring back the lost glory. So I really thank you for this commendable work that you're doing. I would like to say that as India is stepping confidently on this world stage, this question of spiritual freedom, it's more than a domestic debate. It kind of becomes a reflection, like what kind of superpower India is trying to be. So in this episode, it was really nice. We underscored, about India's strength, that it comes from its ability to hold all these multiple truths, multiple paths, multiple identities together, but without losing its center. And yes, of course, the journey ahead, it requires a thoughtful dialogue, whether it's India's our pluralism, um, whether it's being strengthened, challenged, redefined. We just know one thing, that we need to have this conversation, and at the same time we need to take the required action and the right steps for India to become that that superpower and regain its lost spiritual identity. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us for this 13th episode of Bharat Awakens. The exploration continues, and so does the promise of a Bharat that grows stronger by honoring our spirituality and our Sanatana. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Namaste.